All right, here we are. We're back. We're actually having a regular office hours today, so that's good because I think it's been. I have a lot to say. I think I do.
Yeah. And then Friday, another one. The last series.
Yeah. A nice hat, by the way.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Need more. Pedro has some nice hats like this too.
Yeah. Well, I got a nice hat too, actually, that I got in Chicago.
I was just gonna say that you got some. You have a hat game. You haven't worn
it. But I don't really. I'm not rocking it too much. But I have a really nice hat that I got, and I'm not using it very much. I should have wore it today, but I'm gonna get into the hat game. I always promise that I'm going to, and then I don't.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's nice to be here, man. Nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you too.
We'll see you again tomorrow, man. Our last day. Elijah and I, we do a class out at one of the Pennsylvania state prisons. We teach Social 19 together there. Yeah. So it's cool.
Well, you teach the Social 19 part, but
Elijah does the facilitation. So I go in one day and I engage about all the topics that we talk about, and then he goes in the second day each week and does facilitates a conversation, and then also has done facilitator training for them.
Yeah, and they're good. Like they've got some experience already. Like some of them. It's really cool to see. And their degree is rehabilitation human services. So like facilitation and their degree actually overlaps because there's so many facilitation skills that you need for the degree that they're getting. So it's really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's also, I would imagine, just good to have. I mean, well, they're good skills for everybody to have, but that's very. But in a space, man, in a tight space like a prison, which prisons, people have a kind of a mixed, like so many things, right? If you don't experience it, you sort of miss out on it. But it's people have we only whenever you see we see videos or movies or something about prisons, you're only going to see things where there's a lot of heightened intensity, because otherwise it's not interesting. You can't make it interesting, right? So you don't see that the vast majority of life, of time if you're incarcerated, is really just passing time. Yeah, just passing time. Mm-hmm. So people read a lot, people watch a lot of television, people work, people have things that they do, but it's a lot of passing time. So people get good at engaging with one another. Would you say that this is your first time doing something in prison?
This is I would say, like what you were saying, the narrative of the way that people shine their light on like the incarceral system, and how it's usually like heightened intensity or like fighting or this like form of communication that just keeps creating more combat and us versus them mentality. But then there's so much that's not seen of passing time, as in reading or trying to better themselves or develop themselves. And I think that's true. And I understood that with my dad, because he told me he had like a routine. He was in there, he would do math, science, to get his GED, and he just had a structure for himself. And then he would also do, like, he told me he used to do like 1,000 sit-ups and 500 push-ups a night, and he just had this routine. And it's like, okay, he's like trying to. So my view of it was like, dad was trying to develop himself, in there, and it wasn't just all, the narrative that people want to believe when you're inside of a prison, that it's just. I mean, those things definitely exist. So I hear, because I'm not. I don't want to speak in absolute terms. Like, I know what I'm talking about.
No, that's right. That's right. But, well, also for people like you and I who are going in on the outside, and for me, I think that my first time probably was going into prison was in New Jersey in 1986. But mostly
Wow.
if you're coming in from the outside, like you're you only have access to certain people, incarcerated individuals, right? So for me, mostly the people that I run into are people who are interested in growing themselves, improving. They're not necessarily thinking about going out, because we've done a lot of work with lifers, but which means life here in Pennsylvania, but people who are, kind of have the vision for moving forward, and they don't want to go back. And so it's a little bit skewed, but nonetheless, everyone I've ever spoken with talks about, it's a lot of it's a waiting game, and things are pretty calm. And it has to be, right? When you and I are when we're walking through the yard, you think about, it's there aren't very many guards. Guys are out, they're out exercising, they're doing all sorts of things. People are walking around, they're going from one place to another. And relatively speaking, not many guards or COs, I guess, correction officers. And so,
Mhm.
in order for a place of that size to remain stable and calm and work and function, things have to be really, I should say, in order for it to function, things have to be pretty stable and calm. And that means you have to have buy-in from all the people who are incarcerated, because so anyway,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
they want it to be calm, man. Everybody wants it to be calm, because when one person gets out of line, that can just, you get a lockdown or something, man, and then you're screwed because of some idiot somewhere else, right? So
Right.
people are always watching each other. They got each other's back. They're trying to bring calm to every situation, and you want it to be like that. So and the COs want that. So it's just really fascinating,
Yeah. Mhm. That is really interesting. The system of, I don't know, I heard system of accountability
Yeah.
when just, 'cause yeah, if you don't, or if you're not accountable for yourself, then you hurt everybody else,
Yeah.
I guess. If you're not, like one person can mess it up for everybody, like you were saying.
Mhm.
That's really interesting.
Man, and that's not a good thing either, because that puts you in a pretty bad place. Uh, yeah, when you get some unit gets locked down or something, man, that's not good. So anyway, so people are really looking out for one another, and we know a lot of folks who've been moved around to different institutions because, they needed them, because they were such a calming force and an important force. And they needed them to go and be a mentor at these other institutions for some of the younger guys and stuff, So
That's really
anyway,
cool.
yeah,
I
it's
didn't know
really
that.
cool. Yeah. And so, what's interesting for me, I mean, this is the story of my life, man. It just feels like everything that I see, it's like I'm like always swimming upstream. You know what I mean? I always see things that it seems like I I, I didn't imagine,
Mhm.
that are different than what I imagined that they were.
Mhm.
And so it's always, stuff like this that I don't know. It's very strange. I don't know
Mhm.
if it's
Imagining, the incarceral system differently than what
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah,
experienced
that's
otherwise?
right. Yeah, like having,
Mhm.
taking the opportunity, or, being in a war area, or being in, so all these situations that
Mhm.
for whatever reason, over the course of my life, I've uh, put myself in, and then discover that, wait a minute, it's kind of not exactly how I thought it was, and then I come back and I report like, well, so
Mhm.
anyway,
And that usually your report is usually, um, a response to a narrative that's more so extreme,
yeah,
and you're like,
yeah,
"Oh, it's actually not as extreme." Or maybe people are viewing something as subtle, and you're like, "Oh, it's actually a little bit more intense than what you might perceive it to be,"
yeah,
or one or the other, maybe, or
yeah.
I don't
I
know. I
think
usually hear you saying like, "Yeah, we have this idea in our heads of something that's bigger than," but then when we see it, um, yeah, it doesn't usually meet the expectations that
Yep,
people
I
are.
think you can absolutely say that. That's a perfect way to say it. That I'm yeah, and I don't. It's not that I don't seek out things to be able to say like you're wrong or whatever. But I don't know. I just once I look into the world with fresh eyes. I mean, I don't know. I know. But anyway, I try to look at the world with fresh eyes, and I put myself in
Yeah.
lots of situations are that probably many other folks aren't in or wouldn't be in, or this kind of
Right.
thing. So
And I guess with fresh eyes, you mean like curiosity. You just look
yeah,
at it with
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
pure curiosity without
yeah,
any, trying not to let anything influence the way that you're viewing it or with any preconceived notions or,
yeah,
um,
yeah. I think that's a
okay.
perfect way
'Cause
to say that.
I'm just thinking about how Laura uses like curiosity as like the blank slate mindset. And it sounds like we are saying
Mhm,
fresh eyes, blank
mhm.
slate, like
We
the
the blank
mindset of like a
slate.
little kid. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we used to have in Social 19, we had an assignment that we used. When this was when Twitter was fairly new and people were really spent a fair people were it's before it became really commercialized, right? So this is probably like 15 years ago, man. And anyway, one of the assignments was to tweet. We had like this kind of class tweeting, like we could kind of look at it, and the hashtag was fresh eyes that we used, right? There's
Mhm.
something that was said in class or something that you saw in the world or that you read or heard from someone, whatever, that really just surprised you. It was just unique that you didn't expect, anticipate, know beforehand, and then boom, hashtags fresh eyes, and then so it was really interesting reading the things that people found, like then link it maybe to an article or maybe a photo or maybe whatever it is, right? But the idea, the fresh eyes idea, was just something that's that you discovered as a result of the class, like we kind of
Yeah.
that we put turn people's attention towards something like that.
Right, right. It's
Yeah.
just another, oh, now I know something more that I didn't know. Or
Yeah.
the unlearning, just unlearning and learning new things.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool.
How you say, I unlearn. But
Yeah. All right. Listen, let's do some questions from tomorrow's. Well, first off, tomorrow's the final class. We only have class for half a day, uh, or maybe like 40 minutes or so. But
Wait, hold on. There was two questions about the RJI stuff. The first one, are you guys going to do something with them next semester?
I don't think so.
no, we're not scheduled. Yeah, we're not scheduled to teach next semester. Maybe next year we could teach next year, but not next semester. Yeah.
Cool. And the second one
Yeah.
was, what level of security prison do you guys have to go to? That was from Ian, followed by prison sucks. He said that when he was in prison, all he did was read and exercise.
Yeah, yeah. Dudes read a lot, man. People read a lot. The library at this institution is popping, man. There's always people in there. Yeah.
hmm They're reading everything and a lot of basketball. That you said
Yeah.
reading and exercise. One dude plays he said he plays basketball like 8 times a week.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, you
hmm
get pretty good, man. You do that. Anyway, we're at a medium security institution. Yeah. So,
All right.
yeah, 8 times a week. Oh, that's cool. I like it. But reading, man, I've been blown away over the course of my with people who I've met over the years. It's four different institutions, actually. Five actually. Uh, how many people? How much reading happens? And people find. Yeah, people. I don't know. Yeah, so
Mm.
how much reading
Liberation.
happens? Yeah.
Mm.
Well, there are a lot of us academics. This is one of the things I've talked about with many academics. Man, if we ever got locked up, we'd just have a stack of books and just read. We'd finally have time to read all the books that we've wanted to read our whole lives. Like when you do a PhD, you have you do your coursework, and then you have to, you write your dissertation, which is kind of like a book, and then you take your qualifying exams, and the dissertation is based on research that you do. Most people are doing secondary research, which means they get some big data set and they look at it. But I mean, in the world of social sciences, right? I didn't do that. I did all of my research in Ecuador. And Lori did all of her PhD research here, doing interviews in State College. But anyway, but part of the requirements, one requirement is your qualifying exams. So you have to take these exams over a couple, usually 2 different subject areas, because you have to be a master of one, at least, supposedly, whatever that means, and then a minor area. So like a major area, minor area. That was the case for me. Then you take these exams, and the exams could be written exams. They could be oral exams. Sometimes they're written and oral. For me, I had one 8-hour exam, and I was in a room writing for 8 hours. And another one was a 4-hour exam. And I didn't know what the questions were before I get into the exam. Right. So it was like all open book, open notes, but like, there's no time, and it's like I'm going to catch up. So I took about 9 months to read. And so all the reading that I never got to, because when you take a graduate course, I remember almost every syllabus there was a book a week, that we had to read. So if you take 2 or 3 classes, that's 3 books a week. Well, you can't read that much, so nobody can. Well, I suppose some people can, but I never could.
So you're just reading as much as you can, essentially?
Yeah, you read it. Yeah, you read as much as you can. But what happens is, these books, you got the books, and they're sitting on your shelf, and they're speaking to you always, like, you didn't read me, and a lot of these books are key. I mean, I probably had like 40 books that were essential in my field of study, and then maybe I only read fully from beginning to end, like 6 or 8 of them, right? So the other ones are just screaming at me all the time, every time I walk past them.
Wow.
And so, but my qualifying time, those 9 months when I was studying, it gave me the time to catch up on all my reading. So it's a really nice, even though it's stressful because you're going to have to take this exam and you got to perform on it, but you get a chance to catch up on all the work. So.
Wow. That's what I've heard others say too. Like Pedro said that a few times. Just you have all these books that you're supposed to read, and it's like you can't get to all the content, but you get to as much content as you can.
Yeah,
that's just cool for me to know as I get ready to embark on that journey. But
yeah, no, it's cool. It's a nice journey. It's a fun journey. All right, listen. Let me read some. Let me look at a few things. Jeff, this first question about Malinowski, I don't have any thoughts on Malinowski, by the way. I probably should. But I don't. I mean, I would have back in the day, but I don't. And so I'm going to have to pass on that. And I know Lori doesn't have any, especially because I call myself, I'm assuming you're talking about Malinowski, the anthropologist, or whoever, T 1131-2 or whatever. Okay, so we'll pass on that. Okay, what's the next one, man? Here's a question from yesterday's class that asks. Wait, Jeff, can you hook me up here? I'm looking at these questions.
So they're in order. We started with class number or office hours 18. I went to the questions that we didn't get to in the past couple office hours. So this one was talking about living in a war paradigm with Lori. So the first question was asking about this person's theory, and they asked it a few times. So I wanted to make sure that we did try to answer their question.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to pass on it. 30 years ago, I would have been able to expound on that, but I can't now. Okay,
The
and then
what?
Axel,
Expand on the what?
the Malinowski. What do I think about Malinowski's theory?
Oh, okay. Not the war parrot.
and-
Okay.
No, but okay. So listen. So Axel says, and France and Germany fought for 250 years. After World War II, we built real peace by visiting the others. Yeah, I think Lori and I briefly touched on this. Yeah, I have observed that and studying post World War II in particular engagement in Europe, and this is the key, man. If you visit, you make connections. You know, the interesting thing. So on last Thursday's class, we did talked about Israel and Palestine, and it's what's interesting about Israel and Palestine both is like per capita. I think there are probably more dialogue organizations than anywhere in the world. Everywhere you turn, it's just one dialogue organization after another. And so many people, you know, trying to come together and bring people together. And of course, you know, like people, I think Lori said this, it's really not especially difficult for individuals to make connections with one another. It's just the people in positions of power who have different stakes, and their stakes are often not to make peace and not to build understanding. Their stakes are to hold their position of power, and that often depends on people being afraid and people disliking or needing to have conflict with people who they think are their enemies, but they're only their enemies because, you know, people in these positions of power so often drive the wedges into them, and so you don't have it. I remember when I was in Israel, you know, Jewish people being like, "Oh my God, don't whatever you do, you know, don't go to Eastern Jerusalem." That's the Arab area. Don't go to the Arab area of East Jerusalem. Oh my God, don't go to the West Bank. You know, don't go to the the old city, the Arab quarters and the old city in Jerusalem. Oh my God, you'll be, you know, of all sorts of problems, right? And then on the other side, you know, Arabs would say a similar kind of thing, you know, oh my God, you know, the Orthodox Jews, the Hasidic Jews, you know, they're like, those are the real bad ones, you know, because they're really like aggressive and so on. And so each side, you know, would say these things, and no matter where we went, people were very, very open. And I was with a Jewish friend of mine, and he, yeah, it was crazy. So crazy. The people will get along, man, but we believe in the narratives that we're told, and so we follow the narratives.
Yeah. I was gonna ask, so when you were saying there's all these dialogue programs, you said within the region where like the Israel-Palestine conflict is at, and then how much headway do you think that is made? And then it makes me ask the question of like, are there any fundamental critiques of like grassroots sociology work, you know, or problems with like this bottom-up approach to like solving problems, or like a good challenge?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Well, they've made immense headway, but then what happens is there have been these really key moments that just throw everything into reverse, right? And then you got to, you know, build up again. But you know, if you've developed enough trust, and it really is about trust, you know, it's the same we were talking about in a prison, right? If there is a lot of trust between the staff and the inmates, right? Then, okay, when something really bad happens, then it takes it's a lot easier to build a trust back up. So once you've got to start with that, but if you don't start with it, it's really difficult. So all of these organizations, you know, you just have these little hubs of people all around who have a different kind of narrative. And so they're really important. But, you know, but at the same time, you don't see that if you're reading the news. You know what I mean? If you're watching everything from a distance, like, you just don't see it. And so just like you have no idea, bro, let me ask you, the first time you went into the prison, that was your first time. We went in together, right?
Right.
It's mind-blowing, right? You're like, oh my God, the steel doors are opening, then they're closing, and, you know, then suddenly you're walking, and here are these three really big inmates with a DOC on the backs of their shirts, Department of Correction, and they're walking toward you. There's no guards around, man. It's just you and me and our other colleague and these guys.
Yeah.
You gotta feel that, right?
Yeah. The biggest thing I noticed was it felt so cold. It felt so like cold, as in not literally, but just the tone, the environment was just like dreary, you know.
Okay. Yeah. But after your first visit, your first visit, you feel a little unsafe, right? You're like, I'm not really certain. What do I do here? Wait, here come these guys. These guys are coming at me. Right? They're walking that. It's just us walking on the path, and there's like 3 or 4 dudes. They're headed out to the yard, and they're inmate. It's like, is this okay? Am I safe? Is this all right?
Yeah. What was like, do they trust me? You know, or like, do they feel like I don't know, like, do they think I'm a bigot? You know,
or whatever. What are they thinking about you? Who are you, man?
Yeah, that's what I think. I'm like, you know, like, do they feel like I'm somebody that's here to perpetuate the norms that?
But how about your physical safety? Were you like, okay, very quickly, all right, well, this must be fine because, you know, here we are. Or did you have in the back of your mind?
Only because of my dad.
Yeah. Okay. I got it.
Like, my dad I feel like for others, I'm sure, but only because I've humanized this whole part of the world through my father. It feels I do feel safe, and I think it's because I think of that, and I think of my dad. I'm like, I know who my dad is. But I could definitely see that being a thing. It's like, am I safe? You know, in this place. But that's why the main thing I felt was like this idea of like, do you think because my dad, like, he would still ask me to like draft him emails and like, you know, and because he's like, oh, I don't have the idea that I can do an email myself. You know what I mean? So it's like, this person, do they think I'm the type of person that's here to just perpetuate something that, to continue to devalue them or?
I got you. Yeah, and I don't want to so there's a certain trust there. As you and I, man, when we started our class the first day, like, I just sort of rolled in and started talking. I wasn't even thinking about it, but what I'm realizing is each one of them, they're looking at you and I going like, all right, man, who are these knuckleheads and can we trust them, you know? And like, which of course it would be. I mean, I do that with any time I go listen to someone give a talk. I'm like, all right, who's this person, you know? But well, the point being, you know, you can be in these kinds of situations, and you have to be in situations to really understand it. So that was going back to, you know, to class on Thursday, you know, kind of thing. So that goes with that's all coming from Axel's question here about, you know, after World War II, when the French and the Germans were sending young people back and forth to each other's country, you know, to visit. Like, you got to build that trust back up, man. There's a lot of hatred between the French and the Germans, and, you know, so of course there is, man. Anyway, right now there's going to be a whole heck of a lot of it, and between, you know, Israelis and Israeli Jews, I should say, right? Well, Arab Israelis too, and Palestinians. You're gonna have to work that up, man. All right. Let's go to the next question, which is number 4, the one about Matt. Says, how often are people in conflict actually looking for a solution rather than just being heard? Oh man, this is for Lori, but
what was your question one more time?
How often are people in conflict actually looking for a solution rather than just being heard? Yeah, that's like I think just being heard. I think most often it's just being heard. Man, my own experience in life. I don't know what other people think about that, but
that's so important too, right?
Yeah.
Like that, because how many people don't feel heard most of
Dude,
the time?
This is why we have this is why people jump back and forth between these political groups in the United States, man. They just don't feel heard, like, which is like with Trump, man. You people feel like he hears them. He speaks a certain language and he hears them. And so, of course, man, lots of people really feel that you didn't feel like Biden, like he wasn't listening to anybody. Obama really listened. He was really listening, man. Obama did. Clinton, that's what they used to say about Clinton. And George Bush the second, people felt like he was kind of a guy he was very socially adept, man. Like everybody who met him, you could feel that sense that he had to put a certain wall up, unfortunately. But if he could have been himself, he would have been a much more appreciated person in that, Anyway, so I think that's a big part of it. And what does it take for them to then actually seek resolution? It doesn't take a lot for resolution if you just hear. This is the work. This is what we're going to get to with Lori on
Friday.
On Friday. Yeah, the thinking together, the third part of her vision. Yeah. 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 No kidding, man. Okay, let's go to the next one. Hang on, man. I was just looking at Sybil's World 569 just said, in chat, have you ever been in a situation where someone's thinking really took you by surprise? Yeah, I have many times, man. Many times. But really surprising. So often, in fact, that I don't have very many examples of it, but very often. Okay, AZ says, is conflict in a society an indicator of a healthy society or an unhealthy one? Definitely a small amount of conflict, a certain amount of conflict is healthy because it means that, people are moving forward with really interesting ideas. So, like politicians, when they're in a back room and the doors are closed, you want them to be in conflict with one another. But when they bring it out into the world and they get in front of the cameras and they start putting down the other side because they're just trying to score points, that's a problem. It's like, don't do what you have to do and behind closed doors, and don't make it worse, man. Don't come out and try to get people to bring them somehow over onto your side by saying stupid shit that just divides people, man. People aren't ready for that. They don't understand it. They don't know how to deal with it. So,
yeah. And then in the questions that I was sending to you, I brought up self-preservation so much, just because when Laurie would talk about differences and being able to be in difference, so be in conflict, and differences being able to interact with each other. The book that I've been listening to, like the parallel is so interesting between like the importance of being able to preserve self while in dialogue or within a system with other people.
yeah.
I guess like what happens which is, I just thought so interesting, like the idea of the differentiated self, like being able to hold your opinions and not feel threatened or need to not feel threatened and still be able to be authentic, because then you can actually contribute meaningfully without like trying to silence somebody's position or not differentiate yourself because you feel like you'll be rejected. And
Mm,
and so the ability to have self-preservation, like to be able to speak your differences and to preserve self while in
mm,
dialogue with others,
yeah,
was just so cool because it's like I
yeah,
can,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and yeah,
I like
it's
that. I like that.
that, yeah, and those yeah, it's so interesting. I'm just like,
It is so
wow.
much self-preservation, isn't it? Well, this goes to actually the next question from Axel, which was to Lori, actually, but this is, which Lori's PhD is in human development, by the way. So this question is like really, and that doesn't mean anything. Having a PhD means nothing about whether you know anything. But in her particular case, it does. But it's like, is there any scientific research looking at human development and empathy? And like, as we grow, do we become more or less empathetic? We definitely become more if you're moving up like like think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Just in terms of development, right? So the idea that Maslow had is, we start with our the physiological needs, right? Like our food, water, shelter, clothing, sleep, all that kind of stuff, right? That's the basic stuff. And then, once we start to meet all those, then we can start to move up to the next level. I mean, it's not like you meet all those and then you go to the next level, but as those become sort of more taken care of, then we can think about safety and security, right? Like our health, like, you're having, our occupation, property, like family stuff, all, our like sociability, our ability to make connections with other people. And then when we're able to do like sort of meet a preponderance of these needs or meet them fairly well, then you go into the love and belonging level, right? And love and belonging, that's really friendship and connection with other people and intimacy, right? Well, you think about empathy is like, in order, as you're moving up, you're being more empathic, right? Because you're naturally going to be more curious about other people. And then, the more you're curious about other people, the more you're going to want to, I don't know, just do the kinds of things, whatever, you be the kind of person that's going to draw people toward you, right? So that's empathy, right? And then once you get to love and belonging, the next one up is self-esteem. And so that's like all the confidence and what we get from other people and connection from other people and our ability to be really unique but really remain connected. So this is like empathy in the best of ways, right? Like empathy is not like I need to be like other people. Empathy is like, no, I'm really feeling good about who I am and what I am, but I also want to understand other people, right? And the more I feel good about me, the more I can also see even the best and or sometimes the worst in other people, right? And then ultimately, when all that starts to come together, you move into what anybody would call, but Maslow called it self-actualization, right? And that's where you're really being the best. That's where the spirituality comes in, and purpose.
That's cool. Based off of what you're saying, it sounds like, well, one, when you were like, it feels good being what I am, and you said something in what I am. That's like the idea. It sounds like the idea of self-preservation again. Like I feel
Exactly.
comfortable being me, and then I can use empathy to really see what the differences are. So I can see that what is different, in relation to me,
Yeah.
and then you can actually like think about solutions in a different way because it's
Totally.
not, instead of like the idea that empathy that Laura uses is empathy to maintain and sustain things, which is like just to keep the sides. But I guess when you feel like you're saying, like I'm happy with who I am and where I am, and then
And I
maybe you
want to
can
share
think more clearly.
and I want to share it with other people, right? I'm really comfortable sharing my life with other people. Not, I want to make everybody like me, but I'm like so comfortable, like, okay, this is how I'm thinking about stuff. So like Axel asking that question, as we grow, do we become more or less empathetic? Well, and not as we age. If growth means age, no, the answer is no. But if growth means growing, well, growing, just think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And yeah, growth is moving up, being able to meet more and more of those needs and ultimately moving toward more self-actualization. So it definitely involves empathy, because empathy involves other human beings. We're human. We need other people. And so it's just basic curiosity.
We'll have to, oh, sorry. Were you gonna?
No, go ahead, man. No.
I was gonna say we'll have to ask, because Laurie's brought this up a few times during the red blue debriefs, but the idea of rhetorical empathy versus working empathy.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't, it's not all coming to me, like definitions, but
well, here, I think I saw that you had written something about this. I think rhetorical empathy for me is just like a fake, it's just the words, right? It's fine. It's nice that people use certain words, but like, it's not, but it's like rhetorical, meaning rhetoric, like the words, like you put stuff out there, which is fine. It's better to speak kindly than not. You know what I mean? Wait, what did Trump call the Somali population? Wait, someone put in the chat. What did Trump say about Somalis in the U.S.? Like you don't want to be doing stuff like that. What did he call them? He called them waste, or someone look that up. Put that in the chat, man. I mean, that's just you don't need that stuff, man. He talks about, he referenced I think really the entire population, man. It's just
wait, call Somalis community garbage?
Garbage. He just called them garbage, right? They're garbage people. It's a garbage community. It's a garbage country. Yeah. I mean, it's just like, you don't need that, man. Like nobody needs that stuff, right? Yeah, so anyway.
You're saying that in relation to empathy or that's not empathy, but you were saying, we were talking about empathy and then you brought up the Somali, and what were you relating that to exactly? You were saying that's like,
I think, what were we saying here? I don't know.
the idea of rhetorical empathy and just empathy as rhetoric and just saying
right, exactly. And how you can say, people have just learned, just like with all this diversity training and stuff, right? Like people have learned what to say and when to say it and how to say it, man. So they're, as Laurie says, they just start reading scripts to one another, and we think that's enough. And that's like rhetorical empathy. No, yeah, no, I really I understand what it's like to be that person or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's just maintaining.
That's just maintaining. It's still keeps a wall between us.
Right. And you're just saying that Trump doesn't fall into any of those two things.
Like, no, not at all. And somebody wrote, it's like his level is 0, and it's never going to happen. Trump and empathy. I know, and I shouldn't have even brought him up. But that was such a problematic. People, when I see things like that, dude, I could just teach a whole class every day. I could just do nothing, twice a week, just go in and talk about this guy. You know what I mean? And like it's nonstop, man. But I don't, and I rarely talk about him. And I sometimes I feel, when somebody asked me the other day, it's like, why haven't you said anything about this calling Somalis garbage? Right? Like, why haven't you said anything about that? Because that's really disturbing, And my answer was, well, I can't just come out of nowhere. I mean, I could. What did I did a class on, what did he say way back in the day? Jeff, do you remember what was the class I did on when he called the thing he said about Haitians?
Oh, the cats and the dogs thing? Like,
no. What's that? Shithole nations. So there's a class that we did. It's on YouTube. I think it's called, I don't know if we were able to use the title Shithole Nations.
I think it is called that.
Yeah, okay, so we were able to use shithole in the title. Anyway, I did a whole class on shithole nations, like talking about because I have traveled to a lot of shithole nations and my friends, and just being able to say, like, wait, hang on, man, like, this was back when I thought maybe there was some redeemable quality, like maybe like just the guys, like, hey, the students, you don't have to go down this path. Okay. Like, don't be thinking about nations as shithole nations. Okay. Like, you don't have to do that. Now it's just like, I don't even, what's the point, man? It's
So
too,
were you saying, like, you went in there when you were saying redeemable, you tried to uh, like break down what are some of the parts of these countries that make it hard for citizens to thrive, or like is that what you were saying,
yeah.
like, is that what you meant, like redeemable
Well,
quality? Like, that's obviously not the language, but he's referencing maybe I don't know, something about the economy or something about something where it's
well,
like
yeah. I mean, it's just rhetoric,
he's
right?
being derogatory. Yeah.
No, but here, derogatory. Yeah, no, it's rhetoric, right? Like AZ's saying, yeah, it sounds like rhetoric. Well, it is rhetoric. I mean, that's the point of it. But somebody like me, it's like I can refer to my neighbor. You know, I walk down the street a few houses and I look in the backyard at my neighbor's house and I tell Lori walking by, oh man, that place is a shithole, man. Like, oh God. Well, she knows what I mean and I know what I mean. Okay.
Right.
So we're like, all right, I don't yeah, I shouldn't say that. I mean, you know, whatever. I don't really mean it, but it's just a figure of speech. That's a shithole.
Mhm,
God, look at
mhm,
that. But
mhm,
but when
mhm.
you're representing people and you have these communities of people, like we have a fairly large number of Somalis in 3 or 4 different places in the United States, Minnesota being one of them. And you know, you don't do that. Like, you just don't do it. That's a problem
Right,
because we have too many people who think about stuff literally, you know. And it's like, yeah,
right.
you don't, man. And that's like, I don't it's like, if
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
you know,
That's
God,
mhm. That's sorry.
no, I can't even speak. It's too just beyond my comprehension, man.
Right. It's like
Mhm.
another one of those things that Laurie talks about in her book that we can bring up on Friday, like confusing the map for the territory. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
like him using objectifications and
yeah,
general statements to define something that has so much nuance and
yeah.
someone's
Or anybody doing it. We all do that. Yeah,
right.
we all do that. That's one of the beauties, man. I say it all the time, but that's one of the reasons I love having a live audience. And I love to have the cameras going because I can't make offhanded comments like that. People call me out on it. Like, I
Right.
absolutely got to be really careful about what I say. And so
Right.
yeah, that's what we want, man. You know, Jewish people have this saying, "From your lips to God's ears." I've only heard Jews say that, right? From your lips to God's ears, and I'm like, oh man. First
That's
time
cool.
someone, yeah, first time someone said that to me,
It's
I said,
deep.
yeah, I said
I
something
love
kind of mean, and she was Jewish, and she said, "Hey, your lips to God's ears," and I went, "Whoa." Oh,
it.
damn. All right.
And like I just said some stuff.
Yeah, and I'm
Like,
like, yeah, well,
yeah.
I'm an atheist, so like doesn't matter. You know? And so yeah, I keep that.
That's fun. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's cool,
Mhm.
man. It's really, really cool. Like,
It
God doesn't have ears. You know, like,
yeah,
okay, yeah, I
right,
can
don't
say that.
anthropomorphize.
Stop it. Exactly. Don't anthropomorphize. God doesn't have ears. He's not hearing anything, or she, or whatever it is. And no, but that's not the point, man. And that's not the point at all. You know, it's funny. Speaking of that, I was listening to. I finished the American Revolution, the Ken Burns 6-part series. So they're 2-hour episodes. If you have not watched it, highly, highly, highly recommend.
Where
Man,
do you
wow.
watch it at?
Well, it's being streamed for free on PBS, but I think they're going to take it off in the next couple of days.
Okay.
I mean, they're going to put it behind a paywall or something, but it's been free. Maybe they're going to keep it free. I don't know. But the point being, wow, holy smokes, man. I am so humble. I feel like I'm a person who I'm a student of history. Not really. I'm not a very good student of history because I don't have time to study history, but I know a fair amount. And I was, Yeah, I feel like
So,
I just learned so much about so many things. And I learned places where I was right and many places where I've been wrong about the origin of this country. But
mhm.
anyway, point
Well, you
being,
know enough to say that Laurie says that when you guys intersect and have conversation, that's a lens that you really bring into the historical lens
yeah,
when you guys
yeah,
talk. She said
yeah,
that. So
yeah. Okay. So she grants me a little bit of, okay.
yeah.
Well, here's the point, man. It's really worth watching. It's so fascinating to really dig in. I mean, obviously it's 12 hours, okay? You don't have to actually watch it. You can just listen to it. But if you listen to it, you're going to be hearing they do a really nice job because obviously there's no video footage. So they've got paintings and drawings and maps and various artifacts, and then you have to have this audio. So there's people talking, mumbling war, like, cannons or guns or troops marching or horses, or you have all sorts of, it's very subtle in the background. Then you have all the narrators, right? They're either these professors, there's about 50 different people, 40 or 50 or so, there's a lot of them who they've interviewed, but also then they have things that they read. And but the point is that, well, this was a first off, it was a war. It was the landed elites created a war, man, and then they got everybody else to fight the war. So it's the same. It's the same as every other war, man. Poor people don't start the war. Basically, politicians do, and poor people get hooked into it. And so, the vast majority of all the increased taxation that the Brits, that the king and the British were going to impose on the colonists here, they weren't so onerous that it was going to just completely destroy the way of life here. But the landholders, the elites, who were also, in the South anyway, they were all slave owners, and that includes George Washington and Jefferson and all these folks. This was a war that they wanted. And then they had to go out and convince the people that they wanted the war, because that's always like Vietnam. Like, who wanted to go off to Vietnam and fight a war, man? So anyway, it's just so fascinating the ways in which they did that, but also just the ways in which the war just kept going, and the deep contradiction. All men are created equal, right? I mean, you got in the middle of slavery that you're working this out somehow, right? You got to convince people, and you need as many free Black Americans in the North in particular. You need them to fight. You need to figure out when you go off to battle, what are you going to do with slave populations in the South? Because they all start to leave, and then they join up with the British, because the British are promising them, like, hey, we're going to have you be free, man. If we win this war, we're going to end slavery. So it's like, all right, man. So you got all these slaves leaving and joining up. Yeah, yeah. And so, it's like, it's just so incredibly complicated. But the point being, it was in the last like 5 or 10 minutes, they were talking to this one professor, historian, and he said, look, the narrative of the United States is a narrative that that the framers of the Constitution and the fathers of the country, so to speak, right? They missed it. They just it's just pure hypocrisy, to be talking about freedom, and they're not talking about the indigenous peoples here. While they're talking freedom over here, they're making plans to go take more land from the native indigenous peoples, right? And they're making every attempt to hold on to slavery, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in the end, they say, like, okay, well, if you were born, if you're 25 years or older, then you'll be a slave for life, right? But if you're under 25, then you can get out of slavery. This was after the Constitution, after the United States was formed, right? So there are all sorts of ways. They just got it wrong. But what this guy said was, so they got all that wrong. But when you apply it to individuals, you don't see it as a system-wide statement of truth, but you take those words and you apply it to individuals. The support for your freedom as well as my freedom, to make us as good as we can, the best we can possibly be, to support just one thing after another. He just really put this together. He's like, when you apply this to individuals, it has such deep resonance and positive and powerful meaning. And so he's like, just hold that. So in spite of all the contradictions of this nation and all these writings and so on, but if you hold that, it has such intense value. And this historian, this particular guy, he's African-American guy from, I forget where he's from, but really, really thoughtful guy, man, super thoughtful. And yeah, so anyway, I don't know how I got to that.
No, yeah. And what piece were you saying that that doesn't work for, let's say, on a systematic scale, but if
Well, when you have
you
such
apply to individual, what was that
when you
piece
have
you were
such
saying?
widespread hypocrisy, all men are created equal. Women don't vote. People without land don't vote. Black people don't vote. Native Americans don't vote. It's like, like, how do you even put these words together? You read the Constitution, you read the Bill of Rights, you read everything, and just like, dude, who's writing? Like, this is insanity, right? But yet it moved this nation to a place that no other nation was able to get to. And it's really a miracle that this country exists. I'm telling you, when you really understand what happened in the years right after the final battles, right? If you look at what happened here, what in the 2 years or so before, the Constitution was written and the Bill of Rights and the amendments and so on. Wow, it's a miracle, man. It's a miracle that this country exists. And it is there was nothing to model it on. There was nothing to model it on. This is all stuff that I've said in the past. But, watching this.
So one thing you were saying, it's amazing to see them move forward with a narrative that has so many falsehoods.
It's so weak. It's so weak. Yeah. It's so weak. It's just like, are you kidding me, guys? It's like Trump saying, like, hey, we're going to have all these tax cuts and we're going to help average Americans. And like the richest 1/2% get 90% of the tax cuts. It's like, you're not helping anybody. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God. I think the guy downtown, buddy of mine who has a small business downtown was paying, $500 a month for health insurance for his family. And now he's paying $3,000 a month for health insurance for his family. And it's a small business. He's got, him and his wife are the only employees. It's like, this is crazy. So like, who do you got that narrative? This is a silly narrative. Well, that's like, or Obama coming in and saying, we're going to fix this banking crisis. And he takes all the, in 2008, he puts all the bankers who caused the crisis back in power to run the economy. It's like, wait, how are you fixing it? You're putting the same people back who created the problem, man. Like, this is insane. So like shit like that. But anyway.
Yeah. And then in some ways still, you're saying like the country still moves forward with, even though there's a misalignment. But what were you saying was that piece that needs to be applied to individuals? Like,
okay, so there was the guy saying, look, the whole thing is hypocritical, right? But if you take the words, these really beautiful words, right? And they really are. You look at the words of some of this narrative and speaking, it's like, wow, man, like how did they get to this? Like, how did they get to this level of thinking? How they work it out between them? And and the writing is so good,
Okay.
Especially keeping in mind that they were like in their early 20s, a lot of them.
Yeah, they were all young, man. These are all really young people. And so, so that's the thing. Like, but if you don't try it, if you feel like, okay, I don't have to see it through the lens of a system of inequality and exploitation and slavery and genocide, all that kind of stuff, right? But if you, not just kind of stuff like it's nothing, but if you see it as as words and then take them, and what this historian say was like, apply it to people around you. That's really it's deep.
I get it
All right,
now.
man.
I get it
Listen,
now.
we
So like
gotta,
one thing you're saying is personal responsibility. Like
yeah,
like not just accept something as like, oh,
yeah,
it's our society's anthem, but and you're just putting your hand up to your chest and you're just doing it. But if like as individuals we internalize these values rather than is that something you're saying something like that?
yeah, yeah. I
Okay.
think so, man.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Okay.
All right, listen. Let me let's go to the next question. This was from Lori's stuff. Tornado from Kansas City says, "What's it mean that you have students or families watching from all over the world?" Huh. Well, that watch the videos. Don't necessarily watch live, but watch the videos. It does. Huh, that's a really good question. It doesn't mean a lot. I mean, it doesn't mean as much as I would have imagined. Hang on. No, it's really cool. It's really awesome. I'm humbled by the fact that anybody would tune in. You know, we put the cameras on, we put it on YouTube, anybody watches. I'm just like, oh my God, that's like I feel a real sense of obligation to do something that's thoughtful and to make myself smarter tomorrow than I am today. Every single day, I think that, or more thoughtful. You know, that's that's what it means at that one level. But always, when you, I think we often imagine like what it would be to be in a certain situation. Once we get in a certain situation, it doesn't mean what we imagine that it might. Yeah. I don't know if I can make that.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the ideation versus reality. Like
Yeah, like I was in the group today, right? And with the facilitators, and I'm just sitting there. I'm just sitting there like me. I'm like doing what everybody else is doing. I'm like pushing my hair down. I'm just looking around the room. I'm looking at the ceiling. I'm like looking at my watch. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. I'm just being me. The same thing I would have been doing for 65 years. You know.
just for context, this in the
Yeah.
classroom for Soc 369 for our Wink students, we had we had that our last day of class was today, and so Laurie and Sam visited class to talk to the students and to be with them on their on their first semester and some their second and third semesters at World in Conversation. And so Sam was there for the last class, and that's what he's saying when we're all sitting inside the circle, the way that he was existing in the circle.
And I'm just sitting there. And I know, and then at some point I went, oh, wait, hang on. But these students, some of them have, many, maybe most, I don't know, have been in Social 19. So
all of them, yeah.
Because they see me in a certain way. I wonder how and then I'm thinking like, yeah, they probably, maybe that's why they don't, a lot of times students don't talk to me, like they don't approach me, like I don't, like I've met,
like,
I've encountered some really famous people in the world, and I don't just walk up to them. I'm like, hey, how you doing? You know what I mean? I'm not very famous compared to some of these people, right? And who I've met.
Intimidation that those can feel when they're encountering a personality that they see.
But to these students, right? Most of them, for some of them, I'm the most known or whatever probably person that they maybe would encounter on a regular basis, right? Okay, so
that was the narrative when I was a student. Like, you got to take Social 19. Have you heard of Sam Richards? You know what I mean? It's like usually the narrative.
So when I was younger, when I was back 20 years ago, I'd walk down the street and students would be like, hey, Sam, what's up? Yeah, how's it going? Or I'd be somewhere and someone would just walk up and be, hey, Sam, how you doing? Like, oh yeah, I'm in 119. How's it going? Okay. And then at some point in time, maybe about 10 years ago, people stopped talking to me, students.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Really?
it's like, yeah, because it's just like you just go to a certain level and they're like, nah, I can't talk to him. I can't, unless they're drunk. If I'm walking home and there's a party going on, a lawn porch party, it says they're pretty common in college campuses, and like someone's really drunk and they're like, oh, Richard. But otherwise, the alcohol breaks through that. But otherwise, no.
Right.
I'll go places like that and nobody talks to me. I just sit, you know.
That's such an interesting phenomenon.
It's so interesting. But then I think about that. There are like kind of certain people who I run into that I quickly talk to. That, you know, have a certain kind of stature, but I'm just like, yeah, I'm not even going to think twice about it. Yo, what's up? How's it going? And other people who I'm going to be more reticent around.
Yeah.
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 So,
I remember one time. Wait, were you going to continue?
No. Go ahead, man.
Okay. I remember one time, I think I was talking with Drew about this. And do you remember like when Drew used to tell me all the time when we were in undergrad, and remember like Mike, do you remember Mike, like Sartini? He would like go to the front of class and then he would go like this to the audience.
Yeah.
Or he would go like that, and then they would stop clapping.
Yeah.
And he would like hold the beads too. He had the same things that you had.
Yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
And I don't know. Yeah, there's definitely like, seems like certain people that are like totally drawn to you and not intimidated by whatever
there are
social personality that is seen.
Yeah, exactly. So someone asks, like, what's it like to have people watching from around? I forget. Like, I don't even think about it. I'm just so busy being in my skin that I'm like, Lori and I stayed at a hotel in the Middle East, and there was a tennis tournament going on. And we showed up late at night, and in the morning we go down to breakfast, and all these really tall men. I'm like, hey, you're tall. Like, who are these people? They weren't all tall, but they were taller than average. Okay. And I'm like, I don't know who it is. Like, what is this? It's like, because it's clearly there's some kind of event going on. And I didn't know ahead of time. We traveled to this country and I didn't know that this big tournament was happening. Right. And then I realized at some point, oh, it's tennis. And then I'm like, because I was standing in line next to Djokovic. You know, this was before he was really, really big. Like he was just up and coming at that point in time, you know?
Wow, that's cool.
But I didn't say, later I realized who he was. So I recognized some of them, right? And then we were out to dinner and we had dinner and the next table was Roger Federer. So, you know, people who were with said like, hey, let's go, let me introduce you to Roger, you know?
Right.
So we interrupted his dinner. Super, super nice guy. Oh my God, what a nice person! It's just such a nice guy. And then we watched him the next night. We were right on the hang on, it was court side, and we were down low, actually down below the court by like maybe a half a meter. So you know what I mean? Like it was the seats were down below on court side. So we're sitting watching. You know, there, you know, right there. Anyway, there's another story there. But the point is, the next night we were sitting in the lobby, and here comes Rafael Nadal. You know, and he's just walking right by us, and I'm like, I could just be like, "Yo, Rafi, hey man, like, can I get a selfie or like, how you doing or whatever?" Because you know, I'm like, it's Nadal, man.
He's a superstar.
Dude. Yeah, and at that time he and Rod and Federer were the two biggest guys, and then they continued to be, you know, for 10 years after that. But being, I didn't approach him, and
and that's because you don't even know why.
Because I just didn't. Because he's like this too big. Roger was different because we was at the next table over. They're like, hey, I wanted to introduce you to Roger. Like, all right, that's cool. But Rafi, I didn't want to bust his game.
Yeah.
You know? Like, you're right.
Right.
But
Mhm.
and people have that with me, but I always, anytime anyone ever stops me, anywhere, anytime, I stop and I talk to them, man. I
Yeah.
never don't. Doesn't matter. But
I
so
think
he's a
Franklin and
nice
I
guy
stopped.
also. What's that?
Yeah. No, I think Franklin and I stopped you at the rec gym
Yeah,
when we were students.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
was saying something
yeah.
like society changes, like different pants, same style. I don't know if you remember me
No,
saying something like it was just something. I don't know because we were talking about class, and
yeah,
you were doing bicep curls at the rec gym.
yeah.
You know what I mean? You were getting it in. And we just stopped you in the middle of your workout.
Bicep
But
curls. Hang on,
the,
guys. I got to finish these 40-pound weights. Or
no, I
was
think they
it?
were 80s. I think they
Were
were
there
80s
there
each.
80s? Yeah. Or it was either 80 or 18. I don't know which it was.
Either way, you were lifting some weight.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Anyway, that was it, man. The best email I've ever gotten are just probably the ones from people who say, "Hey, I took the class 20 years ago or 25 years ago, and I still think about that class." And they don't remember specifics usually, but so I'm responding to Tornado, the second question from Tornado from Kansas City. Those are the best emails that I get. Yeah, those are
and
pretty cool.
this
By the
was
way, yeah, no, go ahead, man.
oh no, oh well, you were gonna say by the way. I was just gonna say it seemed like we were talking about like the I don't know the so I wonder what the sociology of like idolization is. You know, just like across cultures or like
Mm,
how needed is like or how built embedded into this like human system is like idolization or
yeah,
you
yeah.
know or something like that. It's interesting.
I think it's well, and also I think the more we have all these things, and you can see people, and I don't know. It's a very strange thing to me, and I don't. But I'm always struck by it. When I run into somebody who I see on video. It happens in Korea a fair amount. People I see like uh, I s- I see on video, and I'm like, oh my god, there's so and so. Like you know, and so
Mm,
it's kind of I don't know, it's kind of cool. I
mhm.
mean, it's
Yeah.
cool,
If
but being
it's
one of those people, it's not. It'd be really cool if more people had the experience. If you could have it once,
mm,
you
I
know, just for like 10 minutes or an hour or a day, and then be like, okay, I see what that is. Like, all right, that's
Mm.
cool.
Do you think like I don't know, this is an interesting question, I think maybe, but the idea of like how much of idolization is like a social construct versus like just nature, like a part of what's needed for humans to be motivated or
Uh,
inspired, or how much it is, or
Damn,
if
dude,
it,
that's a really good question. I would suspect it's mostly a social construct, but
Mhm.
probably throughout history, it's like like but there's a nature thing, right? It's like we have our parents and like people. If your parents do a good job, if the child is relatively normal, okay, uh, and the
Yeah.
parents do a good job, and the parents, really develop, do what they're supposed to do as parents. I think that kids grow up with that sense of idolizing their parents, and there's a special connection that they have. And so then it probably makes sense that we would do that with leaders around us, or like teachers and principals and priests and
Oh,
imams and rabbis and that kind of stuff, right? That I
wow,
think.
that's interesting. What you saying that makes you think about the opposite. So it's like if people, I guess maybe hopefully somebody does find some type of person that they can idolize because it's like, oh, what happens if idolization is in no part of your development as a human, like as you're growing up? Like,
Mhm.
what does that do if like there's idolization isn't even a thing for you? Because you're like, oh, if you
Mhm.
have parents that were able to be a good role model and you were able to idolize your parents, it's like, huh, I wonder what happens to a human or and I'm sure there's not this straight path, but if there isn't anybody to idolize, like what does that
Mhm.
do
Mhm.
to the way a person navigates their social world or
Mhm.
their
Mhm.
world?
Mhm.
Hmm,
Uh,
it's
hmm.
interesting.
Yeah, probably. That's
just
interesting.
yeah, just a thought because I was like, how can we think, just like what you're talking about, how people are reacting to you, and how
Yeah,
can we
yeah.
put this in like a sociological like office hours like conversation? But yeah, it's interesting. I don't know, it's cool.
It's a very, I don't know, it's something, yeah, I think about it. I don't think about it a lot,
Yeah,
but
it's the first time I
I
thought of
think
it.
about it more than it's there, right? Because it's there. But anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
all right, man, let's see. Let's go with the next one. I was something that I was gonna say I was thinking about, but all right, let's go with
Yeah, yeah.
all
Got
right, the
you.
next question. Jeff asked on the YouTube stream, what thinkers have influenced your work?
That's a cool question.
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Mm,
You know,
like, yeah.
if you asked Lori this question, she would say nobody. Honest to God, Lori is the most organic thinker I have ever encountered in my life.
Wow.
Thinkers that influence her work are just people she meets in conversations she has, and then the deductions, the things that she
Mhm.
deduces from that.
Mhm.
It's remember I told you about the exams that you take for your PhD? You got to
Mhm.
take the comprehensive exam. So, usually what happens is you have a committee, like, 3 or 4 people, and the committee will give you a list of all the books that each one thinks you need to be able to read, books and articles. Like, you better read these for your exam. I want to see that you incorporate these into your answers, right?
Mhm.
And so, I had a long list. I mean, one was like 3 pages, and luckily I had read a number of them, but, Lori had a long list, and every time I would go into her room and she was preparing, she spent a whole summer, like 3 or 4 months, preparing for her qualifiers. She
Wow.
was reading something that had nothing to do. She was reading this book about physics. She's reading this anthropological book about Mexico. She's reading everything that had not one single thing to do with her exam. And I'm like, dude, are you going to read anything on your reading this? She's like, no, if I don't know any of that stuff now, if I haven't been able to think through it, I don't know. Like, I'm going to read these other things because they're opening my
Interesting.
brain. She was calming her mind
Mm.
down to she is the most, her work, her theory that she's proposing, that obviously we did the 2 parts, we'll do the next part in 2 days. That's all from her, man. That is all from her observations. She has not read a single thing about group dialogue and facilitation and training and whatever
Yeah,
communication.
yeah,
Not
yeah.
a single thing has she ever read. Yeah.
Well, you're helping me bypass a question because I was gonna ask her to give me a book on human development family
She didn't
systems.
not a single one. The only one was, okay, it's just that one, The Family Crucible. That's
The
the
Family
only one.
Crucible.
That's the
Yeah,
only one
yeah.
she needed to read. That after she read that, she understood all of systems, the systems
Wow.
theory, and then she just went, hey, that
And
that
all of
blew. She had one book, and it's basically it's a it's a biography, not really, but it's like a
case study, a case study
case study of a
on
family in therapy, and it's like what each person said, and it's a really thick book, and like,
yeah, it's so
yeah.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So anyway, so I don't have many thinkers. The thinkers that probably most influenced me, I think Karl Marx for sure, had a major impact on my way of thinking. Not the content. I mean, like, just that, first off, that a human being could come up with theoretical models like he did. That all of his work between him and Engels, like, it's like all fits into 50 volumes, 50 volumes, man. That a single human being can write that much and think that much. And as a social theorist, understanding the human social behavior, because economics is only part of what Marx was writing about. Um, Nobody was as prolific as he was, and so original. like, you know, people say, like, I was having a conversation with a couple of students earlier today at the Hub, or radical left
Oh,
socialists. There's a socialist student organization on campus. So these two guys, they're probably the only two members, but they were selling a bunch of books, you know, like Marx and Lenin and Trotsky and like Mao and Mao's Little Red Book, all sorts of stuff, you know. So I was talking to them. But what's interesting is that you don't think it's saying that Marx and Marxism is wrong or whatever. You don't say that. That's just silly.
right.
That's like saying that you know, Adam Smith and Mises and all, you know, all these writers of libertarianism and capitalism were wrong, because like none of it, the capitalist system doesn't work in any way. Milton Friedman, our system has nothing, doesn't look anything like what Milton Friedman, one of the most important, you know, U.S. capitalist libertarian thinkers, said it should, right? So he got it all wrong too. So Marx got it all wrong. Everybody gets it all wrong, but it's not about that. It's about, wow, the modeling, man, the ability to hold these ideas, and like, especially to do it in the 19th century, when you had to go into the library. When you go into like the library where like Marx did his writing, you go into these stacks and you look at all the things that he would have been pulling down and writing by hand. And it's like, oh my God, it is unbelievable. And so it has such a profound impact on me. A, to teach me that I'm never going to be a very good thinker, because I can't even come close to doing anything like that. And B, you don't get things right or wrong. You just make really interesting arguments. That's what being a scholar is. You don't worry about whether you're trying to get it right, but it's not about that. And so anyway, Marx had a profound impact on me, I would say. And then some libertarian thinkers did as well, like Mises and so on. I think I would say that. But and then, you know, a few sociological thinkers. That would be my answer. But
so those are some of the authors that helped you continue. It's cool.
Yeah. So the next question, QWS and YouTube section, Lori mentioned people being in teams in relation to the Israeli-Palestinian conversation. Yeah. There were teams. How do you identify each team? What are the attributes? Well, the team is a manner of speaking that Lori's using as, like, you know, it's really difficult. I just gave you one, right? If you really understood Marxism, don't think about what people say it is. When you really read what Marx was saying, and you're going to need other people to, you know, social theorists to interpret it for you. It's just a hell of a lot easier, because all these old writers, none of them had word processing programs. So you write one copy and then you make some edits and you might rewrite a second copy. But anybody who writes now knows that, you know, you've like this book that I wrote, this recent book that I wrote in Korea earlier in the year. I was like 5 drafts of that book before it ever, you know what I mean? It changes stuff all the time to make sure it reads right. Does this make sense? You don't have time to do that when you're just handwriting stuff out, man. And so that's when you read some of these old philosophers and you can't make heads or tails of it, because you're like, fuck, how come I can't, you know, Leibniz or the Nietzsche or Habermas, but you know, anybody at all, Plato and Aristotle, you need someone to go through and fix Immanuel Kant. There's a good one, man. Just like, oh my God. So like, it's like
a headache.
That's just a headache, man. So Marx is like that, right? So, but if you've not
in teams
understood what's happening, then you're going to just be on this. Oh, I'm pro Marx or I'm anti. I'm going to be on this team or I'm going to be on that team. You know, capitalism or socialism team. It's like, oh my God, please, man. Like, these things are. You can't do that. So like Israel and Palestine, you can't be in a team. Like, if you really understand, when you dig into the issues, you don't get on one team or another. You can't just be like, well, I support the Israelis. Well, you don't just support the Israelis. You also support the Palestinians, because the things that are happening to the Palestinians, you absolutely, if you were standing next to them, you'd be like, this is wrong. Like, you can't do this. And then if you say, I support the Palestinians, well, if you understood what the Israeli position, if you stood next to Israelis and you were watching what was happening, like, you would never just say that. Like, you got to be in multiple places at the same time. So that's what Lori was getting at, I think. Yeah, you just can't be one place or the other. It's just so, it's so hard.
Right, because there's so many layers to a human that, like, you can, I think, yeah, because also she was saying, like, there's so many layers to a human that you can be on one side or the other, but then when you break down all the layers of a human, there's so many similarity. Like, there's some people might have this one belief, and then it's like, oh, like, we're on the same team on this thing, even though we're still on this side per se.
Yeah, that's right.
We still
Yeah.
have identical beliefs with something.
Yeah. By the way, cognitive dissonance 1773 says, like, socialism to Marx was just a transition period to communism. Yeah, it was like, yeah, but what happened was it didn't play out that way, because Lenin comes along and they just want to move their society forward, and they wanted full autocratic power. So they're like, well, we have to take full power here, and if we don't, then we won't be able to keep all the power. So we're just going to claim that we've already achieved socialism. Now we're in communism, and we're going to have all the power and all the weapons, and we're going to have to force people in this place we're going to call the Soviet Union. We're going to force them to do what we want them to do, because we are the autocrats and we want power. George Washington, by the way, the interesting thing about Washington, and here's another cool thing about that, about the series, you really get a chance to see to understand Washington. This guy was amazing, man. He was a slave owner. Okay, he didn't give up his slaves. He didn't give them freedom. He didn't, so okay. But he was the absolute pivotal figure, man. And at the time when Washington could have taken power, and some people wanted him to have full power, and mind you, there were no examples of large constitutional democracies as became the United States. Okay. And again, it was not a land that it was here. I mean, the landed elites were the only ones that were voting and making decisions for everybody else, and, all sorts of things. Right. But, like, man, Washington was, wow, what a fascinating human being, man. So anyway, that's what I say. We were going back to, I was responding to the Marx thing. It's like, yeah, it's just, when you look at Marx's historical materialism, which is understanding how we go from primitive communism, which is, all people were living in primitive communist type societies for 98% of human history, small hunting and gathering groups and so on. And then you watch the transition of that over time. And he spelled out how that transition worked. Now, he was wrong for most of it, because he didn't have the anthropology that we have now, right? So, like, he was wrong. I mean, you read this, it's like, well, in agrarian societies, all these things happen. It's like, well, no. And it's a big, thick book, right? So, like, it's like 3 volumes of Das Kapital. So it's like, of course, he's just going to be going off on spinning on some tale. But so he gets it wrong. But the fact that he made the arguments, like, how'd you do that, man? Like, oh my God, like, how did you sit down and put all that together in such a complex way? That's what people miss, man. That's what people miss. Yeah. Tomorrow's the last lesson. Yeah. Hey, Jeff, can you go to Slack? And all right, man. So here we got class 28. We have 2 questions. Let me see. Jimmy asks, what's the difference between a Zionist and a non-Zionist Jew? That's really interesting. Well, man, if I'm going to answer this question, this is going to be like a really complicated one. So basically, Zionism is a movement that began, it's over a century ago. I mean, there are different dimensions of it, right? But the idea of reformulating the nation of Israel. Okay, so the idea that, if you study the Torah, if you study Judaic texts, the idea is that, it's at a certain point in time, God made a covenant with the Jewish people to say, I'm going to, bring you the land of Israel, and again, I'm not a scholar, so it doesn't, but the point is, this is the land for the Jewish people. Okay. Zionism is a movement of people who, are of Jewish people who had the idea that this was the covenant from God. And so Israel, it's time for Israel to be reconstituted and reformulated as a modern nation state. So starting where it really took hold in the late 19th century. And so, anyway, so a Zionist person, a Jewish person, or you don't have to be Jewish, is someone who believes that in the development, the need for, and the rightness of the modern nation state of Israel, and that most Zionists connect it. You don't have to, right? But most Zionists are going to connect that some will connect it to the covenant of God, right? But many don't. And then a non-Zionist person would be someone who's like, yeah, you could be a supporter of Israel and not be a Zionist. Think yeah, I don't think that there's anything special about the need to have the Jewish state. And I mean, or you could be Jewish and not even like the state of Israel. A lot of Orthodox Jewish people who feel like, look, this was a covenant from God, man. God needs to bring back the state of Israel, not the United Nations, not Western powers, not human beings. This is something for God to do. And God didn't do that. This was done by humans. And so therefore, these are really Orthodox people who are waiting for mandates in the movement and waiting for the signs from God. So it's like, yeah, that's not what happens. So therefore, we don't support the state of Israel, So it's like, damn, that's pretty serious. It's very complicated, man. So I gave you a very, very simple thing. Yeah.
And the term Zionist, to the other side, is a very, very sensitive and inflammatory point, right? Whether or not you are a Zionist.
Yeah, well, a Zionist presumably is anybody who believes that in the modern state of Israel, and that the Israel needed to exist and needs to be protected. Yeah, the Jewish people need a nation, and that God promised that, and that's kind of what it is, right?
Right.
That's Zionism in that idea, right? Which is coming. It's not difficult to get to that place, right? At all. Yeah.
And what's the general idea of Palestinians on the idea of Zionism, or their viewpoint?
Well, for Palestinians, there are Palestinians who, I mean, there are lots of people who have lots of complex views. So it doesn't, you can't
say what's the view. Right.
Yeah, I'm sure there are Palestinians who are Zionists, it's like, all right, whatever. I mean, it just becomes human beings are very complicated. And even the AZ is saying the same book, right? The same thing is well, God works through human rulers. Well, yeah, of course, which makes that complicated because, well, how else does God work? You know what I mean? We don't have any indication that God just came down. Did God really part the Red Sea for Moses? I mean, really, did God do that? Did God come down and, like, you know, the image, right, that we have, the paintings that we see, it's like, I'm not so certain anything happened like that. So if God's going to do anything, she or he or whatever is going to do it through human beings, man, not, you know, or tornadoes or hurricanes or something. I don't know, you know. So it's not like you can. So to say, like, you know, that was Israel's a human construction, right? UN and politicians created Israel, so therefore we don't support it. It's like, well, who else was going to do it?
Right.
But
That's interesting.
so far be it from me to tell people what they should or should not believe in, man. So, like, I don't know. Fuck. All right. Well, so someone, and then Rewater says, what would it take for you to want peace? Let's say the war goes on for 20 more years if peace isn't made today, then when would we make things? If not, when would we make it work if we don't make it work right now? Yeah, this is the problem, man. If we can't do it now, then it ain't happening. And everybody wants peace. Everybody wants peace. I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, everyone everywhere wants peace. They just want peace after they get what they want. You know, Hamas wants peace, but they first want to make sure that they get that something happens that they want to see happen, and then they will want peace. I mean, that's how it is, right? So, you know, I don't know, man. Hey, yeah, okay. Okay. What else do we have, man? Okay, so now we have what's left to discuss. Oh, class yesterday. All right, man. Do you think we will find peace? Putin just announced 22 cities, including mine in the UK, that would be up for annihilation if war went global. Oh, man. Oh, shit. I don't know why I'm laughing. This is like, what the hell is wrong with us, man? Steven, sorry to, you come over here to State College, man. I'm sure we're not on anybody's radar, and certainly not on Putin's radar. I don't know, man. I don't know. Well, what we need to do is tone down the rhetoric. That's the first thing we need to do. Everywhere and anywhere, we need to tone down the rhetoric, and we need to stop the weapons. You know, it's like, let's go back to Hamas. Where's Hamas getting their weapons, man? There's a complete embargo around Gaza. So where did they get their weapon? Where's that happening? How's it happening? And it's gonna, so the IDF goes in and they just destroy so many things, and they've destroyed so much of Hamas, and they've found and captured so many weapons, but they're just going to get more. So we have to stop. Who are we getting weapons from? Why are we doing this? Where's it happen? With these weapons dealers, it's and we're all in it, and people are in it, and it's a disgusting exchange, man, of power and whatever. So I don't know, man. I don't know. Yeah. Apache asks, if Taiwan was not the hub of the semiconductor manufacturing, would the U.S. support for it drastically change? I think so, actually. I think Taiwan, this is why, and everybody is working really hard to scale up the manufacture of semiconductors, man. Korea, Japan, the U.S., really trying to, because we wouldn't need, look, first off, everything is about semiconductors, man. And AI is all about, in particular, the video based semiconductors, right? This is fundamentally what's needs to be produced in, like, it's such high mass production levels. So yeah, I think it would change. But I read a lot about China, by the way. I read The Economist, and I read a lot about China, and it's like, wow, man. The 10 to 15 illegal number, by the way, is coming from the best estimates, coming from people who are studying. I didn't say 10 to 15, by the way. The maximum possible right now is 14. That the really smart people who've been studying this Trump, there's not a chance there's 30 million illegal immigrants. There's not a chance, man. Zero chance. So that's not happening. But it's not 10 to 15. The number, what I said currently is like, I think I said in class, like 12 to 13, maybe up to 14. So 12 to 14. 14 is a little bit high, but it's been consistently at around 10 to 11 million people for 4 decades. So, yeah. So anyway, that's well, so that's the truth. Yeah, you got to really just dig around. Start looking around. The Pew actually put some stuff out on this, right? And the people who are, like, there are a couple organizations that study immigration, and you can't find an organization that is against undocumented immigration. The number I fundamentally get it from Pew Research Council, right, is the one that's saying this, but they're pulling the numbers from lots of other people, and you can't get numbers from somebody who's completely against it or completely supportive of immigrants. Like you can't do that. It's not going to be good. Okay. Christianity is the most successful startup in history. I think I could say that. Yeah. That's actually a cool comment. And that's true. Yeah. Damn, man. Yeah, no kidding. Actually, so is Islam, man. Islam maybe even more so because it's spread so much further, so much faster. Christianity had a 6th, 7th century head start. But yeah, it probably is Christianity though, man. Christian asks, finally, why should we accept the trans community when we don't accept others who deal with mental health issues? Yeah, this is actually a really so here, can we I'm going to read a couple things. So this person said, this is actually, I don't think you don't have to accept the trans community. I just don't think that there's such a need to reject the community in the way that we have. I don't think it's not anything that's so particularly problematic for society as a whole. And the trans community isn't asking to reshape society as a whole. Nobody's asking for that. I've never met anybody who's trans who's saying like, hey, I need you to reorient or reorganize society. So here's this person saying, one question I constantly ask that no trans advocate has either addressed or answered, and was wondering if you had thoughts. It's a complex issue, so it's a complex question. I'll try and give as much here to explain my position. I'll start with it in its simplicity and then see if I can explain the nuance of my issue. It's a very basic question. By the way, that's such a really cool question. I love that. And I'll give my best to respond. I don't, if we encourage or placate someone who thinks they are in the wrong body, why don't we tell schizophrenic people that the voices they hear are real? Huh. Okay. So let me see where it is. I see the entire transition very similar to schizophrenia. I'll elaborate. People who are schizophrenic hear voices we know or are fairly certain by reality standards don't exist. Well, fairly certain, but okay. The person suffering absolutely hears the voices and they're as real as any other. However, we know that they're not. They have an illness in the brain that produces these auditory and sometimes visual hallucinations. Deaf people with schizophrenia is wild, right? We work with them. We provide medications. We use therapy. What we don't do is enable that psychology. Okay, so I think that when somebody has, first off, are you following this? I'm going to try to answer. All right, I'm going to try to put my first thought out here. This is such a.
Is there anything you want to break down or that you're like talk out loud about what you're
I'll just speak
with your question? Okay.
I'll just speak my thoughts out loud. So, I think on I'm just thinking of the conversation. By the way, today when I was standing talking to the guy selling the socialists, selling their books at the table. They were, by the way, they were selling them for basically a couple dollars a piece, and they weren't making any money off them. But I talked to a former student of mine who's transitioned, right? Is transitioning, continuing to transition. So I'm like, oh, okay, this is cool. I don't know what I hear from people. I hear lots of different things from people in the trans community. One is that I'm not in the right, I don't feel like I'm in the right body. And I say, well, what do you mean by that? It's like, well, it just feels like it's not, I'm not settled in who I am, right? It doesn't make sense for me. I've always felt like there was something just off about me when I look in a mirror, when I see myself, when I think about myself and think about my gender, my sex, the whole thing. I just feel like it just doesn't work really well. Okay. My first response is, all right, well, listen, then you need to get in some therapy. You need to do some therapy on that right away, because I don't know what do you mean by that, and I'm not sure you know what you mean by that. So my response to anybody is like, okay, well, you don't do anything right away without, I mean, obviously don't, unless you really deconstruct what it is that you're thinking and what it is that you're feeling. Okay. And I think that anybody who is thoughtful about these matters is going to say the same thing. If you go to your therapist or you go to your counselor or your teacher or your priest or your rabbi, they're going to say, if they're thoughtful, they're going to say the same thing. Like, listen, man, you need to deconstruct this. So I say the same thing. I don't have any sense at all that it's just like, yeah, it's okay. Oh, you feel that? Okay, therefore go walk down that path over there. Okay. So somebody that tells me they hear voices, and I've had students tell me same thing, they hear voices. So this is a sign of some sort of psychosis, right? Same thing. It's like, whoa, hang on. What do you mean you hear voices? It's like, well, I hear, like, do you mean you literally hear a voice in your mind? Like right now I have tinnitus. So I hear this high-pitched strings, like a symphony orchestra in my ears right now, but they could be voices.
Times?
What's that? At all times, man. I hear it right now. It's just like, that's why I got to keep, I have music on all the time. So it's just running. So I'm like, all right, so I need, so if someone says that to me, they hear voices, like, all right, man, hang on, you're going to have to go talk to somebody about that. Right. And do you need to shut the voices down? What are the voices saying? Because there have been many people who have had religious experiences throughout history, including people throughout history who've become very well-known saints and spiritualists, hear voices, and the voices are God, and the voice sometimes comes in and tells them one thing or another thing. And it's not negative, it's not problematic, it's not go light that house on fire or whatever, or something like that. It's very thoughtful. It's like, okay, well, I'm not gonna, all right, so what do we mean? Like, what? So let's watch this. Let's, like, maybe don't just shut down the voice right away, but let's follow this out and see what happens. And I've talked to people, therapists who talk to people who hear voices, and it's like, okay, let's hang on a second. Let's think about this. Okay, so that's me, right? But I don't come from, okay, so how is this functionally different when someone believes they're in the wrong body? We know that there are only two sexes, right? We have two. Well, there aren't just two sexes, because we have people who have the sex organism, right? The sexual functions of both male and female. So people can have both a penis and a vagina, for example, right? So that's possible. So there aren't but for the vast majority of people, it's male or female. And we know that gender is the outward expression of those sexes in a given culture, society. Men don't transition into women so they can live like men. They want to live like women. But that's, okay, so hang on. So so hang on, let me see. This is really, it's so interesting, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the normal argument is that, well, I don't feel like a boy or a girl, but that statement is illogical statement in and of itself, right? Because what's it mean to feel like a boy or a girl, right? What's it like mean for me? I feel like a man. What does that mean, right? You, Elijah, you feel, I feel like a man. How do you even know what that is? Because you've never felt anything other than what you feel. All right.
Yeah. And I was always told I was a man, but
Yeah. Yeah,
that's
you've
one
always
thing.
told
So,
you are. So you just feel whatever you are, you assume that, well, that must be what a man is. So every man, every woman, every man, let me just say with men they have the sex organs of the body of a man, of what we say as a man. And then they live their life being told they're a man. And so whatever they're feeling, they're assuming that, well, that's how all men feel. Like, okay, all right, that's fair. By the way,
oh, and then,
I'm just reading this and I'm going like, oh, okay, let's just think this through.
breaking it down out loud.
Yeah, bringing it down.
Navigating out loud. Yep.
All right. So like it would
And then
be, so for me
Sorry.
to say, yeah, but I don't feel like a man. So this person's saying, well, that's kind of illogical. Like being a man or woman is defined by your chromosomes. It has no feeling. Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. You only feel like you. Like I don't feel like a man. I just feel like me. So like, all right, that makes sense.
I
As someone,
guess would feeling like to feel or to not feel like a man or a woman be comparing the things that society says are attributed to a certain gender and then reflecting on whether or not you resonate with those aspects of what the gender is. So it's like, oh, if I'm like if a man means all these things and I'm not resonating with those things that society says are male attributes or like and if I don't resonate with those, is that what it means to not feel like a man, or they're just different aspects of men that we don't know about? I don't know. I have
yeah,
no
that's
idea.
right, man.
But
No, I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting. Okay, so so tell me what it feels like to be a man. Like I was like, I don't know what it feels like to be a man because I'm only me, which is what this person's saying, which is cool. If it seems that trans advocates, so they're saying like, yeah, I can only tell you what it's like to be me. I can't tell you what it's like to be a man or a woman or anything. Trans advocates are saying that there is a way to feel like a man or a woman, but there is really no evidence because we're all unique. Okay. Then how can I wake up and say, I feel like a man or a woman, right? How does that feel? Yeah. I say this very seriously. Maybe what I think of feeling as a man is actually feeling like a woman. How can we ever really have an answer for that? So the next step is feel like a man as per society I live in, or feel like a woman as per society I live in. And if that's the case, the trans ideology seems like it's a social construct in a way. Yeah. I mean, look, here's the thing, man. Here's the thing. Here's what I get from this. Now, if someone says, I don't feel comfortable being me, that I can understand. I think we can all understand that. So I don't feel comfortable being me. And I have this feeling that the part of being me that I'm not comfortable with is this part of being a man. And there's something that I'm feeling drawn toward being a woman that seems like it makes more sense for me. Like I connect more with that. So that's not inherently a problem, right? But yeah, okay. So then in that case, it's like, yeah, all right. Yeah, not comfortable. So it doesn't mean you should accept the behavior, but you could understand it. You could accept me saying like, well, I'm not really comfortable being me. I don't know what it is that I'm uncomfortable with, but there's something that it just doesn't work for me. And for some reason, I feel this connection or this draw toward the other sex and the other gender. And so like, Well, for me, that's not a problem at all. It's only a problem when we cast the net really, really wide, and people who are uncomfortable with some aspect of themselves jump and walk through that door because they don't see other doors as a possibility. So they quickly walk through that one. And that's a huge, huge step, man. When we open that, when we make that door really large and we say, like, hey, here's this one. Actually, it's a transsexual issue and transgender issue. And that's the one that I keep seeing. And then I'm not identifying that my discomfort maybe is not that.
Right.
That's where I think the movement shifted in the past 5 years or so, kind of 10 years, that it's like, whoa, hang on a second, man.
That the door's way larger right now than
Yeah, but at the same time, though, the door, for many people, that door, by making it really large, for some people who are like, man, walking through that door is what they need in order to really be the most human that they can possibly be. And then there's nothing wrong with that. So, yeah,
well,
that would be my take. It's complicated, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
This is like a whole, we could have started talking about this at 3:00.
Yeah. And here's the other problem, though. You making the trans and mental like the mental illness thing. Like when you talk about schizophrenia, you're talking about something that's happening in the mind. I'm just going to say that's a logical equivalency that I'm going to just back off of a little bit. Yeah, and trans isn't necessarily something. So Jeff had this. Being trans isn't something we have to fix. It could just be the way a person is, and that's not inherently a problem. So, yeah, but definitely, I think just the mental illness thing is, yeah, I'm just gonna, yeah.
What seems to me like isn't important was how you were like, hey, if someone's expressing these things, to be able to have a mirror or something else to reflect, like you said, deconstruct, like examine further, seems like affirming when I hear that. Like so important to communicate these things with others. That's what I said. I have a relative that's going through the same process and transitioning right now, and I remember like saying to her, like the importance of, like finding groups, and like group talk and being able to navigate this with others, so you have a more sure idea of like really what you want.
Man, the problem is it's like the human life is complicated in and of itself, man. Yeah. But here's one, like Sybil's World 569 says, like, well, what would happen if kids weren't labeled and were allowed to play with whatever or however they wanted and not told how they were supposed to be? What would happen?
Case study on that.
And what would happen if people were allowed to bend gender far more than we're encouraged to bend gender if they want. Like, hey, you can bend it. That's cool. Doesn't really matter.
There's been research done about a lot of this, especially like the playing with other toys and such. My high school had a preschool inside the high school, and there were classes where high school students would participate in helping a teacher present a lesson and all of that kind of stuff to these kids. And yeah, one of the first lessons that we were told with the kids is when it's playtime and one of them wants to play with a doll and it's a boy, don't stop it because it's socially whatever. Like there's research, and we went through the research on like how that might impact somebody negatively, and also how playing with trucks isn't inherently masculine and playing with dolls isn't inherently feminine.
Exactly.
So like, yeah, it just goes.
I watched.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, I watched this thing with these teachers. They weren't teachers. They were really teachers' assistants, and they were just, they brought kids in and they were playing with the kids, right? And how these teachers' assistants just subtly, these were little tiny kids. They just subtly pushed the boys toward the more boy toys, and the girls toward the girl toys, and like they weren't. It's just like the kids hadn't even, they didn't even know what the gender of the kids was. They just had no idea. But the point being, like, we do that in so many ways. So many of us are just pushed in one way or another. And it doesn't need to be. So this goes with what Jeff is saying. Like, yeah.
And it makes sense how there could be misalignment. Like
totally.
Because if you're pushed into things that don't really resonate with your being, you know, then now you're like, oh, I'm supposed to play with action figures, but I don't like action figures. I still feel like a boy, but I don't like action figures, you know. But since I'm being pushed into that, does that mean that I'm not actually like aligning with being a boy because I don't like action figures? You know, or I don't know, because you're being pushed and it's not as broad.
But you
like
hear those, you're going to get that push from a really, really, really young age, man. It's just going to start before you're even conscious. You're
I mean, the moment that you're born, you're put into blue or pink clothing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just so, it just doesn't.
Which isn't inherently wrong. It's the social conditioning. Since the moment you are born, it's there. It's happening.
Yeah. That's like these teachers' assistants. It was mind blowing actually to watch these videos and be like, whoa, you don't even know you don't even know you're doing that, and you're doing it. You're pushing these kids one way or another. Now, not that it's just to see that, like, so the question just goes back to the question that Sybil's World 569 asks, like, what would happen if we didn't do that? If we truly allowed kids, if we raised kids in some collectivity as being gender neutral. Some boys, hands down, the boys are just going to go right toward they're going to, whatever they need to do to get their aggression out. You know what I mean? Whatever it is. And the girls are going to do it. We see that. That is just universal, man, that boys that on average, boys will gravitate one direction and girls will gravitate another.
It's called one thing. Like guys are called rough and tumble. I remember this from my psych book, my developmental psychology class. It was like boys rough and tumble, and girls it was something else. Like the natural tendency to.
It's not even push. You don't even have to push them. It's just going to happen. So that's just a given.
Right.
Like that's not. So we used to, for a while in the 60s, everyone was like, well, if we didn't push children toward in these two different directions, they would get all mixed up. It's like, no, they don't, man. Boys you're going to, on average, you're going to go this way and girls are going to go that way. And like, that's just a given. And so, so it's just, that's okay, whatever. But what about the certain percentage in the middle? That's what we're talking about. I don't know how big it is, but it's probably not that large. Yeah.
And speaking of, there was a case study that I remember watching in class where I think there was a girl, she was born a girl, and the parents allowed her. There was times where she would like veer off between like wanting to be a boy and wanting to be a girl, and like all throughout her development, like from from the time that she was an pre-adolescent to adolescence and by the end of like her journey, she ended up remaining the sex that she was assigned at birth because parents didn't shift her one way. They just allowed her to go in the direction that she felt in the moment, and it kind of she ended up going back to her, like she ended up staying the same sex.
I have a student like that who kind of moved a little bit here, a little bit there, and in the end has no intention of crossing over, but really considered it, but was wide open, and okay, it's like no, I'm good. Maybe in the future, I don't know. Hey, listen, well, I think we should hop off. Anyway, but here's what's announcement for tomorrow. Hey, I'm not sure if I'm going to do this, but I'm thinking that I'm going to invite some people on the stream to hop into class tomorrow, and just say like why do they watch? Just like yesterday, I asked students to ask me questions, and like, hey, what do you like that?
Yeah, what keeps you here?
What keeps me here, man? So what I'm interested in is like, why do people on the stream tune in? So
what draws them in?
Yeah, what is it? We don't have a lot of time, but it'd be cool if you were in a space that was quiet. You could turn your cameras on, and so hit us up on Discord if you're interested in hopping in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so just to repeat that, it's like, is anybody interested in messaging Jeff or Sam to say, hey, I want to be a part of class tomorrow, turn my camera on and say the reasons why I'm on the stream, why am I sucked into this stream and continuing to watch, what am I curious about, like,
yeah, that's it.
That's what we'd like to see.
Yeah. Dude,
so if we get some volunteers,
Steven, you could like hop in on your phone from the Christmas party, man. Yeah. All right. So anyway, yeah, that's it. Thank you. You said it so much better than me, bro. Thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah. All right. All right, y'all. All right, man. Yeah. No, Steven, that's fine. It's good. Yeah. But anybody who would like to would be good. And maybe we'll just do it tomorrow. Like when people see who hops on the stream, and then we'll say, hey, who wants to turn their camera on? We can also do that. All right, man. But if you can hop in Discord and let Jeff know, or maybe Jeff, is that the easiest? Not everyone's on Discord.
Should they just say I'm game now in the chat?
No, it's easier because I'll have to send them a message and get an email and send them a Zoom link and everything. So it's going to be a lot easier if you can send me a message on Discord. But if you don't have Discord, send an email to staff@social19, and then just tell Julie to forward it to Jeff, and I'll talk to you.
Yeah. All right, man. Hang on one second.
If you're watching this, if you're listening to this on like the podcast, or if you're watching this on demand, if you go to the description of the YouTube video, or really any of our YouTube videos, you can see the link to our Discord channel. It should be in the description. And again, it's staff@social19.org.
Yeah. All right, man. Hey, listen, everybody. Thanks. Appreciate it. Elijah, I will see you tomorrow out with the guys.
Yep. Last one.
Make sure you wear that hat. You'll fit in quite well, man.
Yeah, I might bring this with me. We can wear hats now. I didn't know we could wear hats.
Oh, we can? All right, cool. Man.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, y'all. All right, thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. And we'll be rocking and rolling. And we'll be back on Friday at 3:00 with Dr. Mulvey, part 3.
Diving in.
All right.
Thinking together.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. See y'all.